Alright guys, back in the shop, and the Shapeoko has a work holding solution now, or it will as soon as we get everything fastened down. So this is basically the same idea as the kit you'd buy from them. Went with some PowerTech tracks and basically cut the MDF myself. Took that over to my brother's wood shop there, where we get some real precision square cuts. And so what we're doing now is just putting holes in these boards, drilling them out so that we can get this all fastened down and get the first project going. So one of the benefits of kind of making your own work holding solution here is that you can buy a 4x8 sheet and get a second set of spoil boards out of that sheet for about the same cost as you'd buy. Now obviously there's a couple more steps in this process. You got to drill out your own holes and countersink them and find your own fastener. So I don't know, it's not for everybody, but right now we're marking things out, and we're over here on the drill press drilling those spaced holes so that we can get this thing fastened down. So I've got these marked, and I started with an inch on the far end here just to give me an inset, and then I went 4 inches along the way. Now it's not a perfect measurement. These are 39.5 inches long total, so there's a little bit of play at this end. I've got two fasteners that are going to end up a little bit closer. I did choose to make these screw holes just a hair bigger than the ones that I'm going to drill in to pilot into the actual spoil board on the Shapeoko. That's the idea, that I don't want this to bulge up. The material has a tendency, especially this MDF, to bulge up when you put a fastener like a screw in there. Even with that countersink, I'm just trying to mitigate all of the possible ways that this thing could get way out of whack when I start putting 2 layers of MDF down on it. We're still going to surface it, I think, but probably not for the first project. I did buy a white side surfacing bit, three-sided cutter there. It was like 35 bucks on Amazon, and I think it should do a decent job with this MDF. It had decent reviews for folks using it for CNC, and so that's kind of why I picked that. But the idea is that once we get this all fastened down, we will probably surface that just so we can get the maximum precision that we can get out of this little machine here. So there we go. We've got that all drilled out here. I haven't bothered with dust collection on this. It doesn't really throw much dust, but I do have the trusty rigid chop vac over here with the with the dust deputy hooked up to it. So I've been using that to clean up. And this is ultimately going to go alongside the Shapeoko as we're cutting, so that we can keep that dust to a bare minimum. Alright, I know what you're thinking. What the heck does this do, and how does it attach to the spoil board? The answer is it doesn't, but we're going to drill 5 different holes here, all the way through, using the same bit that we just used. And then I'm going to use all 5 of the new countersinks that I have to see which one seems like it's going to fit the best in the hardware that I've chosen. So let's just drill 5 holes, it doesn't matter where, and then we'll go ahead and test our countersink bits. Alright, we've got 5 holes. We're going to go ahead and grab the countersinks, and we'll come back and see what those look like. Alright, I know, these are not the highest end countersinks in the world. However, they were $20 and they were available at the local home center, so they are ultra convenient for me in a short order to grab. I said 5. I think I'm going to skip the 1/4 inch for now. I think we're going to start at the 3/8. and see how that looks, and then we're going to work our way out from there. Now I'm going to adjust the table upward here, because what I'd like to do is to set an actual depth stop so that every one of these that I countersink ends up at the same depth in my Spoilboard when I actually go to use it. So I think the idea here is that we will set the depth using the depth gauge on the actual drill press, and then we'll go from here. So let's try that. I'm going to move the table up a little bit first here, though. So let's just test it and see what we get, and we'll set our depth. It looks a little small for the head. I think the head would nestle right in there if you really wanted it to be flush. But right now, I'm thinking that's a little bit small for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to go up one more size, and then we're going to try it again. Let's try a new hole here. All right, that one looks way more promising. I'm thinking that that's probably the one we're going to use. So what I'll do, it's a little bigger than the head, which is what I want, because I wanted to set that head down underneath the Spoilboard a little bit. But what I'll do is go ahead and grab a screwdriver, and we'll drive it down in there to see what we get. All right, so this would be a brilliant idea if we actually had something to thread into, but we're going to thread it down, and then we're going to push it through once we're threaded. There we go, that'll do. We just pushed it through the last bit of the shoulder. So this is actually going to be pretty close to what I'm thinking. If we set that so that we have, oh gosh, maybe a 1/16, maybe almost 1/8 of an inch down below the surface of the board, I think that we'll be in good shape for the actual Shapeoko. So we'll try that and see if we can get a consistent depth here, and then we'll go ahead and set it up for the actual tool. So this is the depth stop for the drill press, and all this morning I've been using it basically with its maximum depth available because I was drilling right through the board. But now, because we're using the countersink, I want to make sure that every one of those countersinks that I make is exactly the same depth so that they are consistent in their diameter. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and loosened up that adjustment right there at the top, and then I can take this whole inner collar and swing it around to set how far I want the travel before it bottoms out. So that's just really, really handy. Now we've got a repeatable depth that we've set so that when we slide our stock into the table and drill that, we're going to get the same hole every time. So that's just really neat. I will mention that although I was doing some testing earlier on another piece of MDF, the thickness is very important if you're going to use the depth stop with the table at the same spot, obviously. So I noticed that just as I was wrapping up there, I thought I had everything configured, but guess what? The actual Spoilboard is a little bit thicker, so I went back and used my micrometer here to kind of get the diameter of this hole, and then I just set the table a little bit lower so that it could accommodate for this, and it took me 3 tries to find that right spot again. But just a really handy thing to do. Again, a much more manual process than a CNC where you're controlling the depth by computer, but for repeatability's sake on a manual tool like this, this is just really, really handy to have. Looks good. And you saw me start on the other side. This is actually the board that goes on the left side of the Shapeoko. So had I continued to drill on this side, so this is a mistake, all of my holes would have been shifted under the gantry where I couldn't fasten them down, which is why I've inset them this way. So minor mistake, that's not going to hurt anything on a spoil board. It'll be hidden away, so we'll hide our flaws here a little bit. But that's the first piece. We're going to go through the rest of them and get this all countersunk. Okay, so we got it all laid out now, and countersinks are done. Tracks are laid in here, and basically we're going to poke little pilot holes in each of these as we go too, again, so that we're not getting that little bit of rise out of the MDF that's below this surface MDF. So I've basically started by screwing this side in. This is kind of our source of dead reckoning, if you will, across the whole machine. And what I did, just because I wasn't sure how else to get it really square with relation to the spindle, which I think is the most important part on the machine, obviously, I went ahead and chucked up a 1/4 inch bit here, and basically just dropped it down into the position in the track here, where then I could use that as kind of a source of touch point. And so with this just barely touching the wall here, I can lift it up, and then I can just slide the gantry forward again, and without making sure that I'm not motoring this either way, I'm doing much the similar thing. I'm just pushing straight down, and if you can see there, it's very small, I understand, we're right on the edge. So it's pretty close. I am guaranteeing that we're out of square a little bit on the tracks themselves, but the tracks really just act as hold down for the actual stock, so that doesn't affect a whole lot with relation to them running kind of linear the opposite way here. So I don't think it'll be a problem. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and get through this. I've got one edge screwed down. I'm going to go ahead and start piloting holes, dropping screws in this, and getting this track system totally installed on the Shapeoko. If anybody had any questions about this, these are number 8, and these are only 3/4 inch screws. So these are going to be the ones that hold the track themselves, each of those tracks down. The nice thing about the PowerTech tracks versus perhaps the Rockler tracks, which these things definitely are emulating, is that they are able to take number 8 screws. The Rockler tracks I had on my old CNC only took 6 size heads, so I feel like we get a little bit better bite with these screws. They're a little bigger screws, so hopefully as we go along, that'll give us just a little extra clamping for us. Alright guys, so after all of yesterday, we drilled the spoil boards. We used the countersinks to countersink all of these holes, and then we screwed them down to the actual Shapeoko. I got about 3/4 of the way through this yesterday, and you'll probably see it in the montage. I ran out of fasteners, and that's probably just a good reminder. Whenever you buy something for a project, just buy double, and then go return it if you don't need it. So I definitely ran out of screws. Picked it up this morning, finished it all up. So the tracks are screwed down, the spoil board additions are screwed down, and I think that we're ready to run this. So thanks for coming along on this little journey. Next time we're going to cut a sign that I intend to gift for Christmas this year. So it's 2018 December. It's about 10 days before Christmas right now, and I think this is going to be a really quick project that I'm going to give to my father when we go up north to see him here in Michigan. So thanks a lot for joining us. If you liked what you saw here, jump on the bandwagon, subscribe, and we're going to keep doing cool things with the Shapeoko down here in the shop. So thanks a lot.